Every performer wants to perform. If I've been able to do this at my age now with the resources that I have, imagine what I can keep doing when I bring more people together.
Benjamin Gregory, Benny Greggs, you are a founder, you are a director, you are a producer, you are a creator, you are an entrepreneur. And your vision to support creative professionals by offering resources for entrepreneurs in the creative industry is truly unique and truly valuable.
Being able to sit there and create a concept and go, what is it that these artists need? One, during the time that I lost my mum, I was still Benny Greggs, the personality. Every time I was not around anyone, I was living a different life. I was living a life that was emotionally, mentally, exhausting and challenging because I didn't want people to see what I was going through. What you see is what you get now. And I can honestly say that the way I represent myself, things you see me on TV or on the radio or speaking or hosting an event, it is me and it doesn't change anymore.
Talking to someone that's finding themselves in the grey or right in that place, what would your advice to them be about how we can move out of that space?
The best thing that helped me unblock that was...
So Benny Greggs, welcome to FlowZone podcast. That stuff doesn't happen just on its own. So what's the process of when, you come up with that ideation and then go, I'm going to start this, I'm going to do this. What's that look like for Benny Greggs?
You know what? My parents were always the parents that were like, Benny, if you want to do something, you got to give it a crack. And they never handed me anything, which at the time as a kid, I was always like, I just would love an iPad. They'd be like, so how's it going to benefit us though? So it was always a sales pitch, which back then I was like, this is difficult, but it always gave me that ideology that, hey, if I want to do something, I have to sink my teeth into it. Creatively, always, I was never limited. I could always go and paint a wall and hang some hooks from the wall and put a curtain up and let my creative juices fly. And it was through YouTube and through consuming and going to shows that it was like, you know what? I freaking love this and I want to create. So my Futuration show originally was called The Gala, and I had it once when I was 16. When I was 16, I had 200 people in a room after I was on local radio, and I just wanted to give country musicians an opportunity to perform, right? Every performer wants to perform.
200 country musicians?
No. So 200 people from the country and 8 performers. And then I was like, you know what? I've kind of got something here. I gave it a crack. I invested my $2,000 I had saved as a young entrepreneur back then, and I gave it a crack. And for me, that opened my doors to be like, if I've been able to do this at my age now with the resources that I have, imagine what I can keep doing when I bring more people together.
How old were you then?
16.
16.
Yeah, crazy. I think my parents were like, I remember going to mum and saying, hey, I'm thinking about doing this event. And she was like, maybe focus on school, but I ended up paying the deposit already. I was like, Mum, I'm year 11 and 12. Don't worry about it. I want to create. So, and then the iterations grew. We went to do one in COVID and unfortunately got shut down due to the pandemic. It's a Futuration now, being able to sit there and create a concept and go, what is it that these artists need? One, as an artist, they feel isolated. They feel like they're out of place. They don't feel like know where their crowd is. Let's give them a good community. It's really expensive to be able to put yourself and film and photograph and have the lighting, sound, tech, staging, costume. These things add up as an independent creative to do your own show. This is a $5,000, $10,000 thing for them.
Yeah.
How can we make it affordable by bringing people together?
Yeah.
And number 3, how can we give them a toolkit that then they can take away to the rest of their community and show who they are as an artist? Well, let's put on a big show. Let's bring 22 of the best musical upcoming young creatives, pair them with incredible dancers that are between 16 and 24, and let's create something that is American, that has that American creative flair in Australia, supporting Australian local musicians, Australian creators at one of Melbourne's most iconic Vegas entertainment venues. And that's where Futuration came in. It was the future generation of Australian entertainment. And we're in our 2nd season and about to open up all across Australia. So that's the exciting part.
There's a lot of stuff that's exciting in there.
Yeah.
So, like, when you started describing that, like, the three things, they feel isolated, it's expensive, and then, like, do it once and then you've got nothing afterwards. So, like, need a toolkit.
Yeah.
So what came before that? It sounds like you've lived that experience yourself, right?
Yeah.
So, like, the way I'm hearing this, and I'm a musician as well, as you know.
That's why we get along. I think it's a musician in
There's
both of us.
There's a kindred spirit thing, right? Like, when
Exactly
I first
right.
met you, it's just like, hey, Betty Greggs. I'm like, oh, Kenny K, how you going?
Exactly right.
So, like, my MC background in the Oz hip hop and sort of electronic music industry that I'm still doing, but it's more of a passion. I didn't go down the career side. It was a similar age. It was early 20s where I sort of went for the more sort of white collar or professional business. Not that I wear white collars. I've applied that technique to it. With you, I'm sensing that this has been a lived experience you've had. You've seen that it could be better.
Yeah.
And there's this community kind of mindset around you is that, like, I'm going to create this thing and you're coming on the journey with me. We're going to be like live testing it here. That's my read on it. And I sort of like that. I've done similar things when I've done like Fitbit or that in the past. How close is that to what's happened?
For me, the best gift that my parents ever gave me was community, right? As an only child, everyone goes, oh, were you a bit isolated as a kid? I was like, no. My house was always full of people and community. And having my mates come over and be like, it feels like a home here. Like, we don't have this at home. And I was like, what do you mean you don't have this at home? You don't sit down at the dinner table and like have dinner? Like, a lot of people don't have this. And a lot of creatives they internalize so many aspects of their life. As a musician myself, I was very lucky. I had the mix of both business, the personality, but then the creativeness. And a lot of artists are creative, they're internal, they're storytellers. And it becomes really hard to be in environments where they feel like they can open up and be accepted without kind of being shit on. I mean, at school, I was a creative. I went to an all sports school and I had this small creative department, and I was always the one at school that was kind of being like, oh, what you're doing the production, or you're doing the lighting and sound for the production, or what's this photography thing, or you're on social media, and like, that's a bit fucking like, some of the profanity that came from that. I don't take it back because, hey, look at where I am now. It's helped me grow. But I sat there and went, if I'm receiving this, but I can tolerate it, imagine how many other creators are receiving this and it must be hurting them. So it was like, you know what? Community is important. Community is so important. Singing schools at the time weren't doing showcases or community bonding exercises for their students back 4 or 5 years ago. So it was like, how can we provide a place that they feel like they're connected? Because I was receiving it and I knew what it felt like, and I was like, well, I need to do something with this. I can't just sit here and take it I can take it, fine, cool. I can turn it into different types of energy. But there's so many people I know that can't. So how can we make them feel like, not that they're secluded and they're cut away from the rest of the world? Of course, having that ability to cop criticism and to cop shit from other people is very important in building thick skin. But how can they build resilience and feel like they've got the empowerment to do so? Let's bring a bunch of people that also feel the same way and let them collectively share their energy and keep on building.
I love that.
That was important. And Futuration was a further iteration of that. I had a BG community for 7 years from 16 through to 22.
Yeah.
It had 300 musicians in it. We gave them an opportunity to perform once a month. And we did what we needed to do in that gap of singing schools not caring about the culture in their school and just providing a service. But we were beautifully enough to influence all of the singing schools now to be able to create beautiful showcases, build great community, and it kind of caught on for them. And that's why it was like, okay, well, we've done the BG community. Let's give that a rest now. Let's give Futuration that next level top tier event that goes, hey, I've got the community now. Let's make shit happen.
I love that. And like, community comes through so strong. It's, it's a value.
It definitely is. It's my value too. So.
Yeah. So I like it the way that you are observing something through a lived experience. And then, like, if I'm going to improve this thing, I'm bringing you all with me.
Yeah, correct.
Right? And you're going to be kind of part of the program here.
Let's grow together. You grow with me. As I grow, you grow as well.
Yeah. And now just seeing that, BG community becomes Futuration, really, like that. I like it. It's institutional now.
Yeah.
It's still got the soul.
Yeah, correct.
Because that's how community works. I really like that. And look, it hasn't all been beer and Skittles, though, for Benny Greggs. And You've mentioned something in there that a few times you weren't limited creatively growing up. Your parents didn't tell you couldn't do something. You could stick, like curtains up, and you can paint on walls, and you can have people around. And that single child thing worked really well because you kind of became a destination. You mentioned, I'm aware that you've lost your mum in recent years.
Yeah.
And there were some other things happening around a similar time that were mounting up. So that's kind of dark zone, like amongst the lowest points. This is only a few years ago. Take us back there, how you felt at that time, and how did you even sort of find a way to go from that to what you needed to do next to move out of that?
During the time that I lost my mum, she was diagnosed with cancer during the last year, my year 12, as school captain of Assumption, and then into the start of COVID in 2020. I was still Benny Greggs, the personality. But then every time I stepped out of that and was not around anyone, I was living a different life. I was living a life that was emotionally, mentally exhausting and challenging because I didn't want people to see what I was going through. As someone that was always trying to build community, showing people that I didn't have it together hurt me because I was like, I don't want them to feel obligated and feel like they had to stress or worry, which added to my detriment. My mum passed away very frequently, like very fast. She was diagnosed and within the 8 months, she deteriorated and passed away. And I always sat at school and looked at some of the kids that lost their parents and went, I don't even know how they're still here. How could you go through that? And imagine being a young adult and trying to navigate not having your parents around anymore. Like even the ideology of people splitting up and parents divorcing was scary to me. Then I was faced head on. I went through a lot of loss leading up to my mum, big family, and I was always the center of the family. My mum was always the center of our family.
I would say a big family. Are we talking siblings big?
No, well, yeah, my parents both had 6 siblings. Yeah. So I had an abundance of uncles, aunties, cousins, nieces, not nieces, nephews, but you know what I mean?
An only child.
I was an only child. So I was this beautiful, I'm calling myself beautiful. I was like this, like the ball and center of attention because it was always my mum and it was always our house with both sides of the family. Very blessed to have a beautiful family. But from 2014 onwards to 2020, like all my grandparents and my uncles and my godparents just started passing away. Every year. It was like, how do you even time this? You go to Faulkner Memorial Park, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and I was like, it's done when my gran passed away. Then my mum. And I didn't understand what loss and grief was even through all of the loss that I encountered before that until I lost my mum. The emptiness and the hole that you feel knowing that you don't have anyone to kind of say I love you or like give you that encouragement when you come home or to cook a meal or to feel like your house is warm and cozy. You don't understand how much you take that for granted until it's not there anymore. One day my mum was here and then she wasn't. And in perspective of life, that's how quickly life can change. During that time too, I was struggling with who I loved in the world and who I was and my identity and what it is that I wanted to stand for. Very common things as a young kid, but when you're in there, you feel like you're isolated. You feel like you're the only person going through this. You don't have perspective. School doesn't teach perspective. Life teaches perspective, right? So for me, I put on the brave face still and kept on going. But with every day that went past, Benjamin Gregory, the kid, just kept depleting. Where Benny Greggs was this empowering force that was using the loss of his mother to be able to inspire and empower young kids to keep on their life. And I'm like, I don't know how you do it. You're so strong. But they never saw anything else that was going on with that.
Yeah. With that there, I identify with that part there. And when we're showing up in a way that almost we want ourselves to be. Like we want to be at this state. We want to be able to move on. And there's a showing others to do it too because we somehow feel we're giving to them. Well, that's what I feel like I've been through that kind of mindset before. And it was something, hearing this, sounds like you were kind of playing out. It was almost like for others that you were doing it. And sort of coaching yourself that if I keep acting this way, like fake it till you make it.
It's going to be okay.
Yeah, but there's a substantial gap there though. And when did you realize that it just wasn't and, you were needing to make some change?
Multiple times. Then I'd go away on a holiday for 5 weeks and I'd come back and everything would be okay. And then all of a sudden, the same time the year after, I'd fall into a lower heap. And I was like, no, I'm just being burnt out. I'm being burnt out. And then I'd go away again. This happened for 2-3 years. And I'd fall in a heap. Until I had my final BG community event, like at the end of it was like the early end of last year, 2023. And I spoke at the event and I went outside and just bawled my eyes out in the alleyway while there was 120 people inside having a party and celebrating the community that I built. And I sat there and looked and I was like, what is happening to me? Like I was confused. I was like frustrated that I feel like I can't be myself. I can't dress a certain way. Everything is just I've been looking at Benny Greggs and being like, you're a hero. But I was like this out of body experience and I don't know how to describe it. Then over New Year's Eve and Christmas, I started to fall into a heap. My relationship with my dad was getting really hairy. He was frustrated. It was like I was holding on to something. He was like, you're not telling me, like, who are you? Like, you know, who are you into? Like, are you this? Are you that? And for me, it was like, I didn't know anymore. I was lost. And then all of a sudden, it was probably 5 days after Christmas with my family. I spent Christmas with my family. They were all like, oh, you seem really different. And 3 days after it hit me, and I was on the floor in my house, bawling my eyes out. I couldn't get up. I was skinny. I couldn't speak. I was like just staring outside the window. And I then went to the shopping center, and a few people, as I walked past being in a country town, were like, you look shit. Like, are you all right? No, I'm fine. Just haven't slept.
Were we also like self-medicating at this stage or anything
Look,
on those lines?
no, but I was lying. I was putting fake expectations. I was letting myself go. I'm very grateful that I learnt a lot from losing a lot of people through some very uncomfortable situations. That scared me. But it was a thought. And as soon as I started to feel that way, I was like, I'm not okay. And I called my mum's best friend, Kathy, who helps me navigate my situation at home. She goes, Benny, I didn't know that you're feeling this way. And I'm upset that you didn't tell me sooner, but I'm glad you told me now. We got to do something. And my best friend Amber came over and she took me to my friend's house and I wrote my dad a letter and I sat there and just was upset for a week and a half. But then my dad's reaction to the way I was feeling and being honest with him, he was like, I didn't know you were feeling this way and it's going to take me time to accept who you are. And looking at myself in the mirror and being like, you look shit, I'm not this person anymore. I then had the encouragement from my friends around me finally that the community I built went, hey, we're going to pick you up now. And that's what I didn't realize, that the community that I was building actually probably wasn't for them as much as it was for me.
Wow, what a realization.
And I went, it's probably okay now to lean on this community to help me get to where I need to be now. But it was hard being honest again.
Wow, yeah. Well, there's a lot in that alone. And, like, you've been in a very sort of willing to do kind of grey energy there. Like, I'm willing to show up. I'm willing to kind of like be what I need to be. It's kind of like pulling you to at least functional. And then you slip down into that sort of really dark energy where it's like, I don't want to be here. I can't be here. I can't stay here. And there are some steps that you've taken that involve some people to grab a handle on, like with Kathy and, the community that can lean back, which is sort of a later realization. But I picked up on something that you said there, and it sounded like something you needed to deal with first in order to be able to move forward. It was kind of like an acceptance of oneself, or at least to make it okay that if others aren't fully aware of it. And I just picked up, you said your father, like, who are you? What are you into? Or I'm going to need time to get to know who you are or accept that. So what is that there?
Look, my sexuality was always something that I toyed with all the time. And I don't let it define who I am as a person, because what I do in my life is my business and I want to express freely. But for me, I had to remove the glass ceiling that was there. And I had to be honest with my dad and be like, look, this is who I am. This is my sexuality. I'm a rock star, Dad, and I need to be a rock star, and I need to just express myself how I want to be, because I'm sick of telling young Charlie that you could express yourself however you want, and you know what, you're always going to be supported around me, but then going home and not having that.
It sounds disingenuous.
Right. And that's what killed me. At the end of the day, believe it or not, my mum's passing was the least of the hardship, because I was dealing with that because of what she taught me. This, on the other hand, was something that I was dealing with and it was eating away internally. So when I accepted that, that's when everything changed. I accepted the fact that if my dad doesn't want to be with me anymore, that's okay. Or if my friends don't want to talk to me anymore, that's okay. Or if people don't like me, that's okay. I had to accept that. But then after I started being honest with myself and showing that this is me, I realized that people didn't change because of who I am as a person. And my personality and my brand doesn't change. It's just what I do in my life and my love life, and be free and be a fucking 23, 22, 23-year-old is up to me. And I don't have to care what other people think because it's my life.
Yeah. Look,
That shift there,
yeah.
when the penny dropped, it was like, oh, maybe this wasn't so hard. Maybe it was just about learning perspective and understanding that, hey, life has so many different avenues. It's just the way that you perceive the situation. And our perspective is something that from that moment is what I've taken into every situation. And that's really helped me grow into the person that I want to be now, that I'm proud of being.
I really want to hang out in this zone for a second here, Benny, because this is transformational. You know, like there's a lot of talk about success with the measurements of like, you know, your business is this many $1 million or I've got these kind of properties. And I actually don't have an issue with someone, you know, being right into something that's a possession or a goal and moving towards it. Like, again, their life. Yet we've seen with this time and time again that those extrinsic motivators aren't really doing the job on the inside, and the success is an inside job, particularly when it comes to mindset and this perspective you're talking about. So the perspective you've gained there, if I could sort of say what I've taken from it, is that when there's something that needs to be dealt with on a personal sort of blockage or authenticity level, that pressure is going to be there, and it's going to come out one way or another. It might express itself in anger. It might express itself in being frustrated or damaging relationships, or even just feeling worn out and tired and drained, like when you flopped, you know, for a couple of days, just like looking out the window, because that is something that our nervous system and our psyche needs to maintain. It's hard work. So if you're now talking to someone that's finding themselves in the grey or the dark, like right in that place, you know, what would your advice to them be about how we can just move out of that space and unblock those blockages that you think are there, but they might not be?
The best thing that helped me unblock that was doing inner child work. It was going back to all the triggers that built resentment in my life. And I worked with a coach who I still work with now, and he's a great friend of mine in the Gold Coast. And it wasn't until we started doing the process of understanding why I felt a certain way in a situation. He kept asking and asking and deep diving. It's like, when was the first time that you felt uncomfortable for who you are and your sexuality or the way that you express yourself? And we did this beautiful thing that I went back and it was like, what did you want to hear from your parents that day? What would have changed your perspective and your outlook on life? We did that tool, and now I sit there and go, for anyone that's going to that space, as someone that their mum worked on natural remedies and was a psychologist and was working with young kids, helping them overcome anxiety based on the philosophies of Louise Hay and stuff like that, I never wanted to go see someone. And I lied for 4 years straight that I was seeing a psychologist so that people would shut the fuck up. I'm being honest.
Right.
But then I accepted the fact that I had a problem and that I needed to fix it. And I went to someone that could genuinely go, let's go internal and help as a business owner. It's always problem solving. Let's fix this problem, right? Talking to someone doesn't fix the problem because it just makes me more aggravated. Let's go internal. Went internal and my life changed. So for anyone that's in that space, looking at the mirror and getting perspective on your situation and hearing from other people, like, what is it that you think that I need right now? Or what am I going through? Or I need help, or leaning on people, number one. But two, do the work. Just pick up the phone, do the work, speak to someone that can really help you understand where the problems lie. Don't try and find them yourself. As cheesy as it sounds, as the person that regretted and didn't want to go do psychology or therapy or any of this shit, right? Because I was like, my mum was the only person that could help me. I accepted. I understood that this is who I am. I accepted. I got perspective from other people and went internally. And those things absolutely changed the course of where I am now.
Yeah, that's just such great advice. And I think it really rings true with the the whole concept of, the thinking that creates a problem is very rarely the thinking that will get you out of one.
Correct.
And so this pillar that you hold of community, like a personal value or a business value, has actually been one of the true rescuers. And the interesting thing is, it was already there.
Correct.
It was your willingness to lean on it or go for it through this fear of judgment that Benny, who's supposed to be our kind of idol, our sort of got it together, who we're modeling off, is not okay right now. So for some reason, you don't want to display that, yet you're asking others to be their full selves and be creative and express themselves. So that just comes back to me to just really a feeling that when authenticity is present, then we're in ability to create.
Correct. And you've got the freedom to create, and you have the ideas to create, and you feel like you're not stuck in a sphere anymore. For me now with Instagram and my personal brand, what you see is what you get now. And I can honestly say that the way I represent myself in other alternate things you see me on TV or on the radio or speaking or hosting an event, it is me, and it doesn't change anymore. Yes, there's still plenty of things I'm working through and learning how to grow and understanding my mood and my fluctuations. But anyone that follows me as a part of my brand know that I'm starting to be a lot more honest with that and being like, fuck it, I don't know what I'm doing today.
Yeah.
I had 5 things go wrong last week. I dropped my laptop. I broke my camera lens. I fell down the staircase. I lost a client. And I put on my social media, I was like, guys, I don't know what the fuck I did today. You know what? I'm a 23-year-old that's just figuring shit out. And I'm okay to show you that because you know what? I wish someone else had done that for me when I was going through this space in my life.
I love that.
I'm now myself, and I always use the philosophy that I'm safe, I'm happy, I'm healthy, all is well in my world. And what will happen, what will be, will be.
Yeah, you don't seem attached to a particular outcome. However, you do seem quite clear on how you want to show up in the world.
100%.
Yeah, and with the rise of personal brands that's happening now, you embody that really well. In school, you were doing social media, others what are you doing?
Yeah.
And, I see the rise of personal brands, and this is something I've been through myself in that I've grown a lot of other people's brands in my professional world and even in my music. And particularly in the professional world, putting others forward and kind of thinking, well, if I develop others, then, we become this center for greatness and that will be known. But the reality of it is it doesn't work exactly like that. And for me, being in a professional world like real estate or business to business, there's a lot of rapport building that goes on. And that's something you do to help the other person hear your message and for you to be in a better chance to hear theirs. Yet because there's rapport building and because there's a lot of mirroring and matching, there is a lot of showing up the way that we perceive someone else needs us.
Yeah.
And that can become quite tiring in itself. So this move to personal brands now, I feel, is a way that the world out there has a way to connect with other people that have common threads, and they can take that on in the proportion that's important to them. So for me personally, part of this podcast now was just being more of my full self.
Yeah.
Because if I'm down at the street basketball courts or I'm down at Fit Pit where I've got a community of 120 people doing fitness for free 5 days a week, or the outdoor basketball group I've got, or the music scene, when I see those people, they're like, hey, Kenny or MK, and it's oh, you're this guy that's always come along, you're very community-minded, ... Yet in the professional world, I realized that people wouldn't have an opportunity to really see that because they're seeing this stuff coming through that's very education-based, very professional, and it's about a subject matter which then gets affiliated with what the brand of people in that world is.
Correct.
So with Benny and your authenticity now and how this is shining through, I actually feel that it's helping others be a lot more of that as well. Now, I'm just going to segue from that. Flow and music have been in the same sentence since the word flow has been getting talked about.
Yeah.
There's books written on it. There's artists going right back to the greats, the James Browns and the like, talking about the B.B. Kings.
Yeah.
The sensation they get when they're making music, how it slows the music down. They're between the notes. So tell us what that's like for you with music. You're a producer, you're a director, you're an entrepreneur, but in the sense of producing and directing, where do you in flow?
Wow, that's a great question. You feel those moments in flow when time either slows down or speeds up. For me, it's purely creating. It's hearing music. It's designing. It's hearing incredible voices and creating story. And, you know, there's no better feeling to sit there and hear a piece of music and in your mind visually create something. You know, you hear a singer sing, you can imagine how the camera would move around them, how the low-lying fog would hit, how the stage would be presented, how their dress would flow off the edge of the podium, how that backlight would light the edge of their silhouette and their hair, how the orchestra would be playing. Like, you can imagine these things, but my flow comes from then going, as if I get to do this now. I can make this happen. And the curation perspective and taking that idea and flowing through the creative ebbs and flows of what it is to produce something, whether it's content, a business, a performance, is when I'm at my most beautiful, balanced flow. Or when there's two sides, or when I'm traveling. It's when I put my earphones on a plane and I listen to a soundtrack that flows with the way that the plane takes off and lands. For me, that in itself is when nothing else matters besides my passion and what I love to do. And that is like, for me, is flow in a nutshell.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, that's the purple zone. That's the flow zone. The way that you just talked about both of those things, I felt the energy in the room change. Like, you know, I feel the tingles in the back of my neck.
Yeah.
Maybe because I'm imagining it through my own eyes, or maybe because I'm feeling it come off you, because there's no doubt the vibration picks up when we get into that.
And energy can't be created or destroyed.
That's right.
And you'll see my friends when I go to dinner. They'll sit there and be like, Benny, shut up. Because I'll sit there and be like, this is incredible. Oh my God, did you see the way they presented that? Like, I get so much joy from the creativity of something.
Yeah.
Even you ask anyone that comes and performs in my shows, I'll scream. Because they'll hit a note and if you're standing next to me, I'll probably hit you. Because it's like, I'm like, did you see that? Like, that is the joy, and the energy radiates. And I know that energy in a room is just the most magical thing ever.
I really love that, Benny. I love that. And the way that you talk about then, like, the flow is the creation, you know, so it's quite similar for me. Like, I'm an auditory learner.
Yeah.
There's a visual element to that still, though, you know, like, and the auditory, I pick things up very quickly when I hear them. I can hear things once sometimes, and being a freestyle, you know, writer, rapper, I've already heard the words before they come out of my mouth. It's like a visual audio visualization. But then the creation for me, that's part one of the creation. But then when it starts to actually sound a bit like that in real life, you know, and that's why I learned basic production tools, you know. Like,
to get it there. Like,
I wanted to be able to take my idea and as quickly as possible get it into something that sounds like something. So my producers in music, they love me. Not because I'm like humming, you know, because I don't know every note that I'm saying, but it's pitch perfect. It's just I don't know what note it is. So I'll hum that, and that becomes the theme. And I'm feeling it come alive. And when the beat comes back to me and it sounds a little bit like it, I'm like, this is a song. So you're seeing that on a level when you're creating an event, when you're bringing something to life. And I can just tell how authentic it is because I can feel it in the room.
I enjoy doing it. And then the fact that other people get something out of it and can reciprocate that energy and then get a product from that too, it's a bloody win-win. How can you not leave a situation and be like, oh, that was shit? When you've loved the process, they've loved seeing you love the process, which makes them love the process even more. Everyone loves the bloody process. And everyone's happy because we all get to create and live our best lives. After my shows, whenever I have my creative weeks, I could honestly cark it that night and be so happy. I'm like, yeah, sweet.
What a message.
Send me home. I'm done. I'll see you later.
I love that. You know, like, so there is, I'm going to just need to pause to get the exact word right. It's
That's all right.
I think it's amor fati. It's basically like, it's the memento mori. Yeah, amor fati is the love of fate, which actually is very closely, they're two concepts that are largely together. So memento mori means remember you will die, and amor fati is the love of fate, and it's an embracing everything that happens in life, good, bad. Benny, the way that you've just described that is like that is memento mori.
Yeah.
You know, like, I could die today and I'm okay with that, you know. And the other one that's closely linked to that is amor fati. You know, these are like famous quotes that the Stoics of like 2,000 years ago Marcus Aurelius and Seneca time were talking about
Yeah.
those origins of those words, just being completely comfortable. I've given it everything. I'm here for my purpose. But if it ends now, I'm okay with that because I'm living that way.
Yeah.
That is such a strong message to take forward from where you've been to what you've created now in your life. You are definitely living a lot of life in the flow zone. There's a lot of purple energy there, Benny.
Yeah.
And I feel like this message, it deserves to go far and wide. I'd really encourage some of your followers when they get to see this, you know, they know how much you contributed to your community. This is a message I feel that the greater community, that many of them haven't met you yet, it needs to be shared. It needs to be shared by your community and by my community because, Benny, you know, 22, 23 years of age, like it feels like you've already lived many lives and you are definitely designing a life to access as much of your flow zone as possible. And I feel like it's just going to continue from here. So thanks so much for coming on and sharing that message.
My absolute pleasure. And what a privilege to be able to chat and have the same energy in a room. As you know, you feel the energy right here, mate. An absolute pleasure. And I'm really proud of being able to just be who I am now. And thanks for giving me the opportunity just to be here and share that.
Brilliant.